Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure review. Okay, so recently I was visiting one of my favorite collectible toy stores, and that is Wax Packs Records in Toys, located in beautiful Roselle, Illinois. If you happen to be in the Chicagoland area, check this store out. It's awesome. So while I was in the store, in one of the display cases, this figure caught my eye. It's the S.H. Figuarts Street Fighter Chun Li action figure. This figure was used, it was previously owned, and it was missing all of the accessories. The figure was marked for $25, but I got a discount on it, so I got her for $20, I believe. And I had to do some homework online because I wasn't really sure what was missing. I just knew that it was missing everything. So I found this photo online, and this kind of sums up the figure in general. It's the Bandai Figuarts Chun Li figure as she appears in Street Fighter V. And here's kind of most of the accessories that she comes with, at least the ones that I can see through the window. She had, or at least mine had, 2 additional heads, multiple hands, and some blast effects, for when she does her fireball attack. Or I think even if you want to do her lightning kick, you can use those also. But like I stated, mine was missing everything. All I had was just the action figure. But I didn't mind, paying $20 for this was, for me, very reasonable. The figure brand new on eBay could command prices anywhere between $120 to $180, depending on the seller. I don't necessarily collect S.H. Figuarts action figures. I do have a handful of them. I have some Star Wars figures, some random DC superhero figures, but for the most part, it's something that never really struck a chord with me. Mostly because, these are much more specialty items. They're higher priced. It's not like you could walk into any retail store and find them, So these are figures I do have an appreciation for them, but it's just something that I just don't collect. For the most part, the reason why I picked this up was because the price was super, super reasonable. And I don't want to go down that slippery slope where, now that I have her, I have to hunt down the rest of them. For me, just the fact that the secondary market price for all these Street Fighter Figuarts figures are so high, I don't even want to, even consider it, I don't want to start collecting figures that run on an average of maybe $130 to $140. So that's kind of well out of my, my price range. But today we're going to take a look at Chun Li because she was very affordable for me, and I'm a Chun Li fan, okay? So the figure, much like most Figuarts action figures, they're a little bit on the smaller end. She's under 6 inches, a little over 5 3/4. So it's a much smaller action figure than what I'm used to handling. Right now I'm really just big into McFarlane figures, Star Wars Black Series, Marvel Legends. Those are all 6 to 7 inch scale figures. The only small scale action figure line that I'm into right now is the World of Halo, and those are 4 inch. But for this, it's all right. I do have a collection of Street Fighter figures, but they're kind of more in the 6 to 7 inch scale. So she wouldn't really fit with those either. But I do have an appreciation for, what this figure is, what it does, and we're going to take a look at it. So, all right, so unfortunately for me, I was stuck with, the worst face possible. She comes with additional faces, but the one I got was the screaming one. And it's all right, I guess, but it's not the one I would prefer. The hands that came on mine, she has, the open hand with the fingers kind of posed. Like that. And then she has kind of the closed fingers, but the open palm. Like that. The sculpting on this is decent. It's kind of much more in line with an anime action figure, so it's going to look a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more exaggerated. It's not necessarily like a realistic representation of any specific person. One thing you'll always notice with Figuarts action figures is that the big selling point on these is that they're super posable, highly articulated, very posable. And you'll notice that there's a lot of breaks in the action figure. You can see a lot of the gaps and articulated points. You know, if you move this aside, you can kind of see the way that the legs are articulated. The nice thing with these figures too is that you can articulate them and, you know, it'll hold the pose. You know, these figures, unless you get really, really crazy with them, you know, the joints, the tolerance is just right. You know, it's not too tight, it's not too loose. And this figure does not want to, she's not very, her skin tone isn't very photogenic with my light. So that's why she's always kind of jumping in and out of focus. But if you're a Street Fighter fan, it's pretty cool. You know, everything is like articulated on Figuarts action figures. Like her hair buns are articulated. You can control, you know, which way the ribbons flow. Her neck is very articulated. In addition to having articulation where the neck meets the head, where the neck meets the, you know, the top of the shoulders is articulated as well. So you have full range of motion. The arms are super articulated. You know, you kind of have a socketed butterfly joint in addition to the standard ball joint in the shoulder. The elbows also very articulated. You know, they could bend up pretty high. And it's all pinless, so you don't really see an exposed pins. Her spiked wristbands also articulated. They could rotate, as well as her wrists. Beneath her bust line is where it's cut, so she could like crunch forward a little, arch back, and then she could even like move to the sides, which is really nice. Underneath her legs, underneath her skirt, you can see the articulation in her legs. She could kick up. She could kick out. And it gets kind of wonky here. Like for me, I prefer a action figure with less articulation and just a cleaner look. But I'm kind of a child of the 80s and 90s. You know, for me, back in the like 90s when Spawn and McFarlane figures came out, you know, a lot of their figures were like miniature statues, and I kind of love that. But I do understand, you know, nowadays people are really more so about articulation, especially like with the popularity of like social media and action figure photography. You know, a lot of people want to share their action figures online, and people want to get them in like the most expressive poses as possible. And that's where like a figure like a Bandai Figuarts figure comes in. You know, the S.H. Figuarts figures, they're like engineered for posing. You know, you'll never find an action figure that you could pose better than a Figuarts figure. You know, any pose you can imagine, you could get them in. Especially like a character like Chun Li. You know, she's a very, if you've played the Street Fighter game, she's a very versatile character. One thing that's always kind of like struck me as odd is that I don't remember her hips being always so big. Like I knew that she had wide hips like in the first game when she was first introduced in Street Fighter 2. But it seems like with every generation and every new game, her hips just keep on getting wider and bigger, and her thighs just keep on getting larger and more muscular. Not that I have a problem with it, but I just thought that was always kind of odd, you know. Like if you've seen the original Street Fighter 2 or the original Street Fighter anime, you know, she has a much more leaner build. But man, her legs have just gotten so muscular over the last, like, I don't know, 30 years or whatever it is. But yeah, great action figure. You know, you could strike all sorts of cool poses. You know, if you want to do her spinning bird kick, you know, go ahead. If you want to do her projectile attack, you could do that. And if I remember correctly, it's a really like ridiculous pose. She's like fully bent over, and then her head's up, and then she's kind of just, this is how she shoots her fireball, unlike like Ken and Rue. But yeah, this is really neat. I kind of regret not, getting into this line, but like I said, at the price point for these figures, it's a it makes your hobby very, very expensive, and the hobby's pretty expensive as it is, especially nowadays with all the action figure lines increasing in prices. So yeah, this is a great figure. I have some friends that are really into the figure art stuff, and I don't, I'm very envious of them. But for me, it's just like I said, the price point's a little too high. For like the amount of money I could spend on one of these figures, I could buy like 3 Marvel Legends. Although I have to say there are some figure arts figures that are pretty affordable nowadays. Like I was at my local Japanese mall, and they had some of the Dragon Ball figure arts, and those were really reasonably priced. They had Goku, Vegeta, and Piccolo, and those are priced at $35. So for me, it's kind of like, it's very tempting. But for me, Dragon Ball is one of those things too, where if once I start collecting Dragon Ball, I'm like jumping down the rabbit hole. I'll need all the Z Warriors, and then I'll branch off and want all the villains and all the Saiyans. And I gotta draw the line somewhere. I already have like a Dragon Ball collection from like years ago, and I really don't want to start a new one. But yeah, these figures, they're awesome. I can't say enough positive things about them. It's like I said, the only thing that holds me back from starting a full collection of figure arts is just the price point. But they're fun to play with. If you're just big on like action figure photography, excuse me, or if you just want toys to fiddle around with, these figures could keep you occupied for like hours on end. They're so posable, they're so dynamic. If you're like an artist, especially if you're like a aspiring manga artist or comic book artist, these figures are great just for like photo reference. Like if you need an action pose, you can easily figure it out with these figures. You can figure out how to do a proper kick pose or like a punching pose. So yeah, these are great. Like them a lot. Alright, so let's close this one out. I apologize, this was not a full on review, and that's mostly because when I got the figure, it was missing like all the accessories. But I hope you found this somewhat insightful. If figure art stuff is something you're thinking about dabbling in, I kind of hope that this video gave you a little bit more insight into the quality and engineering of these action figures. They're very premium, and that's in the quality of the figures, the execution, and also the price point. So let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. Alright, later.